Okie dokie, for those unfamiliar, HyperFanGirl is a character played by Tamara Chambers of Channel Awesome in their series The Nostalgia Critic. Hyper is a recurring character, so a lot of the decisions were made with filming in mind. This came about after I sent Tamara my Star Wars mini fridge, and she's like, I love it. You want to collab on something? And I'm all, yes. So one of the ideas was HyperFanGirl gun and armor. It's not full body armor, of course, just a few token pieces, but it's enough to change her look while still being hyper and still offering more stories and making her look a little bit more badass. I'm just going to go in order of completion. The first things finished were the arm accessories, the Comlink and the Nintendo controller. The Comlink body is Sintra. It's also got an LED, a 3-volt battery holder, tactile switch, an aluminum rivet that I powder-coated red, and some metal greebles from a dead electric toothbrush. The transparent glowy part is UV resin. This was my first time using UV resin, and for first time, I'd say it's pretty freaking magical. The battery location is there to mimic the prequel-era Comlinks, namely the sending a blood sample via Comlink scene, but it was also meant to look like the Clone Wars-era Comlinks from the TV show. The idea to use a Nintendo controller was there from the beginning, but it was originally supposed to be for a jetpack, kind of like my steampunk jetpack, but the jetpack idea got nixed, but I already had the controller, so I just put another 3-volt battery in it, another LED, some acrylic rod, and some Velcro on the back, because there's Velcro loop all over the place. The gloves are Nomex flight gloves. I like the way Nomex feels, but I think leather would have been better just because they frayed, and you couldn't really burn seal it because it's Nomex. I cut the fingers off and painted hand covers on the backs, the same white plastic tip and leather paint as everything else. They're supposed to complement the forearms, which have the elbow extensions like Obi-Wan armor from the Clone Wars. I just think it's a good look. The Pauldron was patterned off of my 3M face shield. It's mostly EVA, some 5mm, 10mm, 2mm. There was no real plan. I just glued stuff together until it looked cool. Once I put the LED strip in, I glued down a layer of plastizo to cover it all, and then gradually covered all that with UV resin. The wavy lines in the resin are from having to do a little bit at a time because of the convex shape. These are the same modules as the gun, and they work perfectly for this. All the orange lights are the same analog 5-volt strip. I wired them in serial L so I could use a 9-volt battery. The Pauldron and the guards all have white plastic dip and Angelus leather paints for durability. The strap came from an old Camelback. I don't remember where the idea to use the energy drinks came from, but it was before I started on the belt, so the belt was made around them. There's 4 on the belt, 2 Red Bulls and 2 5-hour energy. I washed them out, sealed them with resin, just poured some resin in and flipped them over until they cured. I was halfway through the belt when I had the idea to make one that spins, kind of like a gunslinger. Alright, so this little spinner thing here, it comes apart. There is this, which is the part that's got the opposing magnet, and then there's this little ring part. Let's see if I can do this on camera. And then there's a hole on one side and a hole on the opposing side so that this goes all the way through. And since it goes right between your fingers, it should snap right through. And that right there is kind of a minimal profile so that you shouldn't be able to see it on camera. Here, let me take it out real quick. It just slots into the can like that, and you can feel it grabbing because there's 2 magnets pulling it together, so that it's actually a pretty strong hold, so that you would snap that back in. You would snap that in. It's angled so that you can still kind of mime drinking out of it. Take a power sip, and then, yeah! And then sling it, and then maybe slip your hand out like that way, but it doesn't actually come off clean all the time. Sometimes it pulls it out, but that's how that's intended to do that, is so that you can do that whole hero moment. Come on, hero moment. There we go. Yeah. The spinning ring is some 1.5-inch tube that I just squashed in a vise. And the shaft was a steel washer, a retaining pin from an old Force Effects lightsaber, and some neodymium magnets. One went on the ring and the other one inside the can. I had to apply resin to the can 4 separate times. One to fill the bottom for ballast, one on its side to secure the magnet, once on its head to seal it, and one more with the UV resin to clean up the top. The belt was an old rigger's belt that had some nice thick, flexible canvas. I glued some 5mm EVA foam to it and then glued on the holster cup. And I filled in the side gaps with foam clay. And for some reason, I decided to hand paint this. I think this was when I ran out of white plastic dip and was waiting for more to arrive. So I kind of finished it, and then I decided that it looks a little too bland. So I made some random greebles and put them in empty spaces, and that kind of made it look a little bit more full. The belt can actually double as a bandolier. It can be attached to and slung off the pauldron, but I don't have any pictures of that. The arm guards are also EVA foam, 5, 10, 2mm. They're pretty simple, but at one point I had to strip off all the plastic dip and start over. That sucked, but they ended up fine. The design was pretty basic. It was still going to get color and electronics, so I stuck to a simpler overall shape. They were almost going to get miniature gun barrels for the control knobs, but they ended up being crooked and they stuck out too far. In addition to the plastic dip and the leather paint, they got a couple more layers of Mod Podge for protection, since they'll see a lot more abuse than the other pieces. Again, the little elbow flares are to mimic the Obi-Wan bracers from the Clone Wars. It's just a cool design. And that's the Hyper Armor. Okay, bye.